Your baby lifts a small hand and points across the room, then turns to check your face before turning back to the object. Most parents smile and move on, a cute gesture, nothing more. But researchers who study early communication have found something startling hiding inside this ordinary moment. Almost no other species on Earth does it the same way. Not chimpanzees, not gorillas, our closest living relatives, even when raised alongside humans from birth. Developmental scientists at institutions including Emory University have spent decades studying this gesture and its rarity because what looks like a simple reach turns out to be something far more sophisticated. A baby reaching for a biscuit wants the biscuit. That's easy to explain. Grasping, motor control, desire. But a baby who points at a passing dog, glances back at your face, then looks at the dog again, isn't asking for anything at all. There's nothing to hand over, nothing to retrieve. What that baby wants is for your mind to land on the exact same thing theirs has. That distinction is the whole mystery. Before a single word has been spoken, before mama or dog or more exist in that small mouth, a baby has already discovered that other minds exist separately from their own, and that those minds can be deliberately steered. The question worth sitting with is what has to happen inside a developing brain to make that possible, and why evolution seems to have handed this specific tool to humans almost alone. Making that gesture meaningful takes several brain systems switching on and beginning to talk to each other, and psychologists call the resulting skill joint attention, the shared coordination of two minds onto one thing. The first requirement is a working model of other minds. To point on purpose, a baby needs a rough working assumption that the person next to them has their own separate stream of attention, one that isn't automatically tracking whatever the baby sees. Researchers studying early social cognition treat this as one of the first solid signs that a baby has begun distinguishing what I know from what you know, a distinction some psychologists consider the foundation stone of human social life. The second requirement sits in the prefrontal cortex, the brain's planning and control center. Earlier reaching is largely reflexive, driven by simple motor circuits responding to whatever's in view. A point aimed purely at sharing attention with nothing to gain from it directly requires actual planning, forming a goal, holding it in mind, and executing a precise gesture to reach it. That's an executive function at work, months before that same baby can string together a sentence. Then there's the checking loop, the rapid glance from object to face to object again. This is the baby actively confirming whether the message landed, an early version of the same feedback-checking adults do constantly in conversation without noticing. Researchers who study infant gaze patterns have documented this checking behavior appearing reliably around 9 to 12 months, arriving well ahead of spoken words. That sequencing matters. It suggests the drive to connect minds doesn't wait on language at all. If anything, language may be built on top of this earlier system, borrowing its architecture of shared attention and translating it eventually into words. Try this with a chimpanzee raised from infancy in a human household, bottle-fed, dressed, treated almost like a member of the family, and something strange happens. That chimp can learn to point to request a toy from a keeper, but ask it to point simply to share something interesting with nothing to gain, and the behavior barely appears. Wild apes point at almost nothing at all. Whatever this gesture taps into, it seems to be wired into the human lineage in a way it isn't for our nearest relatives. Researchers who study the origins of human cooperation have a compelling explanation for that gap. Human survival depended, far more than for any other primate, on the ability to align attention and intention across multiple people at once, spotting a threat together, tracking prey together, teaching a skill by making sure another mind was watching the right thing at the right moment. A species that could reliably point at danger or opportunity, trusting the message would land in another mind exactly as intended, had a serious cooperative edge over one that couldn't. Some scientists go further, arguing that this drive toward shared attention is one of the engines behind the human explosion in teaching, culture, and eventually spoken language itself, the machinery that let one unremarkable primate begin passing knowledge between minds instead of relearning everything from scratch each generation. Seen this way, a baby's raised finger in a living room isn't a small milestone tucked between rolling over and first steps. It's a live demonstration, in miniature, of the exact cognitive tool that allowed an ordinary species to build cities, languages, and civilizations. So what's actually happening when your baby stops, lifts a finger, and turns back to check that you've seen it too? A mind that's still months from its first word has already worked out something profound, that other minds exist, that they can be reached, and that reaching them is worth the effort. Long before mama or dog or more, a baby has already learned the deepest lesson language will ever teach, that understanding is something built together, never alone. That's the real story folded inside such a small gesture. It isn't a request, and it isn't an accident. It's an invitation, the first one that human being will ever extend. Every conversation that follows for the rest of that life, every shared joke, every "can you believe this?" traces its lineage back to a small hand in the air and a parent's eyes following exactly where it led. If you're still wondering what's really going on beneath a moment like that, the video beside you goes deeper into the science. And if you're wondering what it actually looks like day to day, the one next to it shows you exactly that. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks!